Hi class, I'm Dr. Marina and welcome to Delinquency. I'm going to take the time just for a moment to introduce you to the class, discuss expectations, class structure, go over the syllabus a little bit. Every once in a while I'll post a video, but I thought it'd be nice to post a video for the first week to get you kind of introduced to the class so you know what's going on. We have four major class goals. One is to understand the major sociological theories used to understand youth delinquency today, to read and discuss sociological research on delinquency, and very important to use what we're going to call the sociological imagination to understand delinquency. And you will also write a final paper and give a presentation on that paper to demonstrate your understanding of youth delinquency and to use the theories that we talk about in class to critique those theories and to explain how well these theories are used to explain delinquency today. A few points of departure. This is a sociology class, so we're going to think about delinquency sociologically. And so, sociology is the systemic study of human social life, and youth delinquency and transgression is a part of that human social life. So in this class, we're going to ask the following types of questions. What kind of society produces delinquency? Delinquency doesn't just exist in a vacuum. It exists within particular historical circumstances and structural conditions. So what are those historical circumstances? What are those structural conditions in which we find youth delinquency emerge? Why do most youth actually conform to the rules adults make? I'm actually surprised that most young people they conform. They follow the rules. They are obedient to a largely oppressive society, an oppressive educational system, an oppressive criminal justice system. So why do so many young people actually conform? I'm surprised more people don't actually break the law. So we're going to ask, why do more young people become transgressive, become delinquent, and become deviant? We're going to ask, why might youth gangs form? Perhaps there's a good reason for youth gangs, and upon closer inspection, perhaps forming gangs is a rational response to an otherwise sick society. So perhaps gangs can actually serve as an important part of that society. We're also going to ask, who really is the problem? In other words, perhaps we shouldn't be asking why young people are causing so many problems for adults, but rather, why are adults causing so many problems for youth today? In fact, are young people really a social problem? When did it become a social problem? It wasn't always the case. So when did this crisis in youth emerge in the first place? Why have we even criminalized kids? That's crazy to put kids in cages and to turn them or transform them into criminals. Why do we allow cops to arrest kids? Should cops be putting kids in cages? Should we have a criminal justice system that locks up kids in cages? I've worked in juvenile detention centers and in juvenile jails in Brooklyn, New York. And I've seen a lot of soft, kind of put and pop kids go into the jail as soft as can be. And after a couple of weeks, they learn how to become violent and how to become aggressive. So if we want to create a violent, dangerous public, what we should do is put kids in jail when they're young. That way, then when they become adults, they'll become threatening, they'll become menacing, and they'll become violent. So that would be one, if that's your desired effect, to produce violent adults. You should put kids in cages at a young age. In fact, what kind of society even calls the police on kids, much less putting them in cages? And the question that we need to ask, why does lacrosse, lacrosse have one of the highest juvenile arrest rates on planet Earth? Very striking that that's the case. So these are the kinds of questions that we're going to ask. It's also very important to distinguish between sociology and criminology. Mainstream criminology is generally uncritical, and it's not very good. It does not question crime, but rather accepts the definitions of crime that the powerful impose. As a result, mainstream criminology has become a doctrine of orthodoxy for those who refuse to question power and authority. And while much of sociology doesn't do much better, there is a small aspect of sociology, it's a more critical sociology that questions common sense assumptions about the world. And those critical sociologists ask, what is crime, for example? Who gets to decide what is crime and what's not crime? What are the power relationships that are involved in making some people criminals and other people saints? And why do some of the most dangerous crimes, especially the political and economic crimes of the world that cause far more death and financial loss, why do these crimes go generally unpoliced and unexamined, including by sociologists and criminologists? We have to ask questions. What is the function of the police? Is it to really protect and serve the people? Or rather, is it to uphold class inequality for the rich and the powerful? After all, aren't police just working class people that are the hired hands paid to police and oppress other working class people? Maybe kids aren't the problem at all. Perhaps it's we adults that are the problem for kids. And so that's what sociologists do. We take the common sense assumptions that people make, the questions that people ask, and we flip them around. And that forces us to think in ways we would never normally think. It allows us to think outside of that proverbial box. It allows us to become critical. And so we also wonder, and after all, isn't rule breaking, isn't nonconformity, isn't deviance and transgression and challenging authority and challenging power, isn't that a good sign of mental health than conformity? So in this class, you'll learn how to think about youth delinquency using what's called that sociological imagination. And in the first couple of weeks of class, you're going to be introduced to this sociological imagination. But in short, the sociological imagination allows us to see the world beyond our own subjectivity, beyond the own private orbit of our own lives, beyond the myopic views in which we see the world. It kind of allows us to transcend our body, to transcend ourselves and look at the world in new ways. And once we are able to do that, then we can understand the intimate connection between personal troubles that people experience and the structural issues that cause them. And we realize that things like crime and delinquency are not the result of personal pathology or bad people or of one's psychology, but rather it has to do with the structural conditions of our society, the structural issues that so many people create. In fact, the problem so much isn't people, but is the sick society that people must live in. And those people are oftentimes considered, the problem and become scapegoated. And so as a result, the sociologists look at the structural conditions and the structural issues that cause personal troubles for people. That sociological imagination also allows us to understand the link between history and human biography. And it also allows us to develop a sense of empathetic understanding. And when I say empathetic understanding, it's the ability to understand the world from the actor's point of view. In this case, from the view of the delinquent. And I'll give you many examples of that, of how to do that throughout this semester. And most important, this sociological imagination allows you to become this budding sociologist and to think of the sociologist as the medical doctor of society. But instead of a human being being our patient, society is our patient. And so our job is to diagnose social problems like delinquency, identify its root causes, the structural causes of delinquency, and then find structural solutions, find structural remedies to treat the disease, to treat the social problem, to cure society of its illness. So our job is to cure social ills, to examine, diagnose, and operate on our society to make it better. And so the answers then to youth delinquency are not to pathologize young people or to lock them in cages or to sick our cops on them, but rather to solve the structural conditions that produces so much trouble in the world of young people. So let me say a few things about the organization of this class, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the syllabus, the first two modules, and then I'll let you be. This class will cover the major theoretical approaches to understanding youth delinquency, a lot of the sociological theories. You'll look at some theories such as social disorganization and anatomy, two very powerful theories that I think you'll like. Lower class-based theories of delinquency, interpersonal and situational explanations of delinquency, control theories, labeling theories, which is one of my favorite. I think you'll like that. Various other radical types of theories to explain delinquency, from Marxist lenses to critical feminist lenses as well. And so you'll kind of get the whole spectrum of delinquency, from the more orthodox conservative theories to the more critical, radical criminological and sociological theories to explain delinquency. We're also going to read some criminological ethnography. One book is called Stick Up Kids, where you'll see a scholar who goes into the barrio of New York to examine young people who stick up drug dealers for a living. So I think you'll really like that book. And it employs and critiques a lot of the theories that we're going to cover in this class. So I think you'll really enjoy that. And in the end, which I'll talk about in a minute, all students are going to write a final paper and have the last 2 weeks of class to present that final paper online. And the purpose of that paper is to show your mastery of 2 or 3 theories of delinquency, and to critique these theories as they apply to understanding youth delinquency today. And again, you're going to present that in the last 2 weeks of class. Let me just go over some of the syllabus for you. Check out my office hours. They can be virtual or in person. Just make sure, as I'll probably reiterate before the end of this talk, to send me an email in order to set up a time to meet me, even if it's during my office hours. I'll always send me an email, because sometimes I'll meet a student at the UWL campus coffee shop and have my office hours there. And so I may not be in my office, although I'm on campus meeting with students. So it's always best to send me that email. I'm always available. You just got to send the email. So very important. Get in touch with me, send that email, and we can set a mutually convenient time to meet. So make sure you go over the syllabus, pay attention to the course outcomes and learning objectives, et cetera, the required books, Schumacher's Theories of Delinquency, an examination of explanation of delinquent behavior, and then Stick Up Kids, Race, Drugs, Violence, and the American Dream. Also have some recommended books in there, including one by Jody Miller. She's a real good scholar. Getting Played, African American Girls, Urban Inequality and Gendered Violence. It's good. And probably one of the best books of all time ever in the Sociology of Deviance. Ned Stewart, Hall, and Tony Jefferson, two great scholars who I'm fond of. We meet every year. And they remain pretty strong in the field. The book is called Resistance Through Rituals, Youth Subcultures in Post-War Britain. Outstanding book. One of the first books I really read in delinquency when I was an undergrad. And luckily I went to a graduate school in New York, and I got to meet all of my kind of sociological heroes that I studied as an undergrad. Anyway, so it's a good book. So pay attention to outside reading, and have outside readings as well that I'll post on the module. Everything that you need to know, by the way, every week is going to be on the module. So you just check the module and it tells you everything. I'm going to reiterate that point in a moment. So the syllabus has a weekly agenda, everything, including the course requirements and grading. And so you're going to have 2 exams. There'll be multiple choice and or essay, but probably multiple choice because you're going to have plenty of writing in this class with the discussion boards and the final paper. So expect two exams, 60 points each, 120 points total. The final paper, applying sociological theories to explain delinquency, that's 100 points. And the instructions for that final paper are already on week 1 module. It's all there, the instructions, the rubric, everything you need to know. So, check it out, right? And then you'll have a weekly discussion board, 180, that's 180 points. And on the syllabus, I have a rubric for that discussion board. So make sure you pay attention to the rubric to get, all the points that's needed, or that, you would like to get. There's a few things. Let's see. So weekly discussion boards, 3 postings minimum for each week. And that's 1 original response post to peers, posted no later than Thursday of the corresponding week, and then 2 in-depth response posts to your peers no later than Saturday of the corresponding week at 6 p.m. So it gives you a lot of leeway there. Except for the last week, it'll be due on Friday. And so 1 discussion board each week. Each post is worth 5 points. That's 15 points per discussion board. And so there's 180 points total for all the discussion boards in the class. And there's 12 discussion boards total. So there you go. So again, check out the rubric for the discussion boards. Most people do a pretty good job of the original post. The reply post is where they lose points. So I suggest really following that rubric on the reply post, and to not just say good job, I really like what you said. We want to be critical, and so challenge me, challenge your class peers. I think that's very important. In my classes, whether they're online or in person, I like students to question me, to challenge me, and to challenge each other. That's how we all get better, through debate, discourse, and intellectual curiosity, into exploring those intellectual curiosities by challenging professors, by challenging other budding intellectuals and thoughtful people. That's how we get better. So make sure that reflects in the discussion boards. And so anyway, I have a box that has all the grading that tells you, how much everything is worth. So it's all there. There's a final grade scale too, so check that out in the syllabus. I have makeup policy, other course requirements that you can look after, keys to a successful online class, check that out. And even on the syllabus, I give more explanation of the final paper. But again, the full instructions for the final paper are already in week 1 module. But anyway, it's still there in the syllabus too, so check it out. And then you have your class schedule. So follow that. Again, everything is going to be on the weekly module. So all readings, class assignments, everything is in that module. But anyway, week 1, this week here, we have the introduction to delinquency. Then you're going to have your first discussion board. Actually, you have an introduction discussion board this week, where you introduce yourself, say something about yourself, and then you have week 1 discussion board. And that's where everything really begins. And so check out the discussion board. I think you'll like the first one. Hopefully you'll like all of them. I try to make them creative and thoughtful, so hopefully you'll enjoy them. Week 2, we go into the classical school of criminology and delinquency. Week 3, social disorganization and anatomy. Week 4, lower class based theories of delinquency. Week 5, interpersonal and situational explanations of delinquency. Week 6, you'll have your first exam. Week 7, we're going to start our book. You have 2 weeks to read the book. I'd start early, makes life easier. Stick Up Kids, Race, Drugs, and Violence in the United States. So check it out. So week 7 and 8, we'll be reading the book. Week 9, control theories. Week 10, labeling theory. And of course, you have the main book where you're going to be, drawing for the readings. But I'll also have outside readings, and they'll be posted. When you have those outside readings, they will be posted on the module. So. Week 11, we'll have an open class discussion board. And so I try to keep the class fluid and flexible to meet student interests. And so I keep an open discussion board for a couple weeks. It's week 11 and week 13. Your second exam will be week 2. And then week 14 and 15, just the last week, you'll have, that'll be used for your presentation. Well, you'll post a video presentation on your final paper to the class. And your final paper will be due Friday, December 13th at 2:15 p.m. Okay, that's almost it. Make sure that you do the introduction module. That's your student introductions this week, as soon as you can, so we kind of know a little bit about you. And so I look forward to reading those. And then week 1 module, you'll have the introduction to week 1. Most of the module will start with a short introduction that just says basically what we're doing that week, but every week is going to look the same, right? So I've taken the time, by the way, to write my own notes on every single chapter of the Shoemaker book. Every single chapter, you have the notes. And so I posted all of those notes on each week's module. In fact, I think there's even a module for all of my chapter notes. I wrote those notes. So you can, as you do your readings for each chapter, you can also follow along the notes that I wrote. So you can see, how I took notes and what I think is most important and everything else. And so, take your own notes, but those notes are a gift to you to make your life a little bit easier, a little bit kind of time consuming on my part, but they're all there for you now. So use them, be smart, use them. But don't just, not read the chapter, right? So you want to read the chapter and then use the notes that I wrote as a helpful guide. And most students in class do it that way. The most acceptable students in class do it that way. I also have one of my own writings that I put up there. So read in that week 1 module, an invitation to the sociological imagination. Another writing of mine, human agency versus determinism. I put that in there. And then you'll have your week 1 discussion board. And so get off to a strong start this semester and put on that week 1 discussion board. And most weeks are going to follow this same format in each module. Introduction, what to read, which is already in the syllabus, Marina chapter notes, whatever other readings you have, and then the discussion board. So just follow along that same exact format week in, week out, and you'll be fine. The only exception is when we have an exam or something like that, right? Or final presentations. So again, each module has all the readings, notes, discussion boards, exams, instructions, expectations, assignments, indeed everything you need to know. All right, and it's also in the syllabus. Again, just a reminder, I want to say it again, office hours, email me to meet, and we'll be able to find a time, no problem, just got email. So for now, take care of that introduction discussion board where you do your student introductions, do the readings for the week 1 module, and get ready for that, that discussion board. So look forward to seeing you all online. Email for anything you need. It's a pleasure having you in class, and I look forward to our semester. So take care, y'all. It's not shutting off, but we'll shut it off. I got the spinny wheel thing, and it's still recording, and it won't shut off. My computer sucks. Oh, y'all can stop watching now, by the way. If I end it, if I just shut it off, do you think it'll have recorded it? All right. I'll try that.